Hi, this is Penn and Penn. You're listening to Diminishing Returns. I listen to it all the time, but I've been known to lie.
Ho, 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 and welcome to the Diminishing Returns Christmas special of 2019. We would like to thank our Patreons for voting for the films we're talking about today. And what is it going to be, boys? That's right, your silence speaks volumes.
That's my impression of it to hint along.
Oh, good. That was a very subtle hint. Yes, of course, we're doing the Home Alone movies. So let's just introduce ourselves quickly. Hello, my name is Alan. And I am your friendly neighbourhood Santa Claus. Over there is Sol.
A lovely cheese pizza just for me.
Who is our local neighbourhood Macaulay Culkin impersonator. And of course, with us, everyone's favourite elf is Calvin Dyson.
Hello. I'm just sat here warming up my feet by the log fire. This is my Tim Curry impression.
I thought you were doing Malcolm McDowell from the fifth one. But more of that later.
Oh, dear. All right, guys, before we start, okay, we're covering the Home Alone films, the big family-friendly kiddie films. So I think if Joe Pesci can do it, so can we. So no cussing tonight. No, nothing that wouldn't pass in a PG.
Just lots of rasher fresh.
Oh, you rasher fresh.
Yeah, a lot of mumbling under the breath.
Yeah.
Is fine. But yes, if Joe Pesci
and you are allowed to go, son of a.
Yeah.
As I noticed the fake Santa did.
All right, let's see how we get on there. But we need to watch each other because it just comes out naturally. So let's get on that clean iTunes list. Whatever it is.
But yeah, so done an episode without swearing. We must have done.
Have we? Your father. Our patrons voted for what Christmas film we would be doing this year.
Patrons, yes.
Our patrons, and they chose Home Alone. What were some of the nearly rans?
I'll tell you now, Alan, Calvin, listener. Home Alone ran away with it. It got twice as many votes as second place, which was a tie between Jingle All the Way and Die Hard 2.
We did Die Hard last year, of course. That's available at dimreturns.com.
Can I just ask, are any of these films in your regular repertoire for this time of year? Because I never watch any of these, really.
Well, I don't have a regular repertoire.
I was going to say, I don't watch the same film every year, as part of some sort of
I do.
It's
It's a Wonderful Life and Black
worship.
Christmas and Gremlins.
No, I mean, I did that with Die Hard for a number of years, but then I got to a point where I'd sort of seen it too many times to be able to enjoy it properly. And
good thing about Die Hard is you can watch it any time of the year.
Yeah. Well, so you can with Home Alone as well.
That'd be crazy.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Yes, thank you, patrons. And of course, if you would like to become a patron of the show for just $1 a month, go to patreon.com/dimreturns, where you get all sorts of bonus content. And of course, you can participate in these little votes and help us out
Yes,
with the
we
show.
are currently running a poll to decide the fate of our upcoming Valentine's Day
So there's
special.
no more 50 Shades of Grey films to look at.
Exactly, we've done them all.
We
And
need a sexy
historically,
film to look.
exactly that's it. We look at a bit of smut every year, and again, one film is running away with it. And I must say, I feel like the voters have sort of missed the point of the episodes. They're making us look at something good from the look of things.
Oh, what is it?
Boogie Nights is winning.
Oh, I've never seen that.
Oh, I see. Well, and I kind of thought the idea was we were meant to look at just shitty sex movies. So
Why did you give them the option?
To test them, and they failed.
So if you wanna rectify things and make us watch Debbie Does Dallas or Porky's, Showgirls, Nymphomaniac, just some of the many choices. Legend of the Overfiend, Fritz the Cat. Head over there and cast your vote.
Right, let's crack on with the film discussions.
Yeah,
Home
we've got
Alone.
5 to get through. I don't think we've done a 5-film episode in a while.
I'm hoping we won't have to do too much on the last 4. But, there you go.
Well, I think the first 2 are probably the most notable. I'd be surprised. I mean, to be honest, until we decided we were doing this, I didn't even know there was a 5th one.
Yeah, I don't think
in
many
this
people
series.
are aware of the 5th one.
Yeah,
Well,
and I'm not going to lie, the first 2 are very fresh in my mind. The third one I saw years and years ago, probably when I was about the same age as the protagonist character. And I just watched a highlights reel of the 5th one because I didn't realise Malcolm McDowell was in it, and I just was morbidly curious to know what he would be like. So I've watched 15 minutes of the whole film condensed.
I didn't realise Malcolm McDowell was in it until I started watching the film, and he walked out, and I was like, "Oh my god!" And
Must have been a difficult moment for you.
yeah, well, I felt very bad for him, but
Well, let's come back to it. Let's come back to that.
Yeah.
So it's 1990. I assume this film came out in December. I would guess
November.
Oh, cheeky! They bring it earlier every year, don't they?
December in the UK.
Yes. So Macaulay Culkin is fresh off Uncle Buck, so he's established. It's a John Hughes script. John Hughes directed Uncle Buck. He recommended Macaulay Culkin, apparently. You got Chris Columbus directing, who was already pretty established by that point. Oh, no, I don't think he was very established by that point, was he?
No, I think this was the first big thing that Chris Columbus had his name on. Like, what else is there? Heartbreak Hotel and Adventures in Babysitting are his previous 2 directorial efforts. But he was a writer on Gremlins, The Goonies, and Young Sherlock Holmes, which all...
Well, I was just reading something earlier that John Hughes had got him on working on National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, and he was going to direct that, but then fell out with Chevy Chase. Can you believe?
Oh, really?
Fall out with Chevy Chase.
I was going to say he's the most agreeable man working, isn't he? And
I hope you're ready to take your medicine, you fat. You didn't give us a script to begin with, so nobody knew what the was going on during the week. Second of all, you're goddamn bad writing shit, stinko. Script was an abomination, and your writing is getting worse and worse. So suck my cock. I don't get talked to like that by anybody, certainly not in front of my wife and daughter. You goddamn alcoholic fat shit. You're gonna live to be about 57 if you're lucky the way you eat. I got nothing to say to you except you can suck my cock. Is that clear? And I hope you can play that for everybody around you who agrees with you that you should say you in front of all of those people, to me and my family. You think that's the right way to behave? If you were here right now, I'd kick your teeth out. You know that? You're nothing to me. You're a billion of who I've worked with before. You're not funny. You're okay.
So he was supposed to have directed that, and then so John Hughes kind of felt like he owed him one, I think. Yeah, I don't know why John Hughes was established as directing his own films by this point. I don't know why he didn't direct it particularly. I don't know if there was a specific reason for that.
Well, John Hughes had quote unquote good films that he made, and then his money press, which is made up of Home Alone, Beethoven, all the sequelized scripts for family films. Flubber.
Are you saying he didn't take Home Alone very seriously?
I think perhaps.
Fair, maybe it's just not as personal to him. It does take place in Illinois, though, just so you got that John Hughes touch. Is there any point going over the plot? I mean, everyone knows Home Alone now, don't they? It's an 8-year-old kid. He accidentally gets left at home alone over Christmas, and he has to defend the house.
He puts on some aftershave, and then he recreates the scream.
Yeah.
And a couple of criminals tried to break into his home to burgle it, and he sets up a load of booby traps. And I think that is the iconic thing to come out of the film. It's the kid sort of setting up all these elaborate Rube Goldberg-esque traps and tricks and things, and the criminals fall for them every time.
That is the entire draw of the film. Surely,
I was somewhat surprised when I rewatched this film the other day that's basically about 15 minutes right at the end.
Yeah.
It's actually a much smaller element than I thought, but the film feels paced correctly and it flows and everything. I didn't feel like I was like, oh god, I want to see Joe Pesci falling on some marbles.
Well, I think that one of the for the most part, the film concerns itself with just Macaulay Culkin, like Home Alone, and he's just hanging out and doing things. And I think it does speak to that kind of wish fulfillment. I certainly wished, like when I was like 8-9 years old, like, oh my god, if I'm left at home alone, I can do what I want. I can.
How long before you just be terrified, Calvin? Because Saul, in 10 minutes, Saul would have the place barricaded against zombies. You probably would have just wet yourself, and then in excitement, and then in fear as a second barrel.
I remember when I was left home alone for like a week for the first time ever, and I think I was
28
years old. And I made the mistake of going out with my friends on one night, and because I was unused to, making sure the house was locked up, I left the key to the house in the front door.
Jesus
and then went out for 4 hours and then came back and made a couple of my friends check out the entire house. We looked in every wardrobe because I was sure that someone would have come in and be hiding in a cupboard waiting to kill me.
That'd be the worst opening kill in a slasher movie ever. Some prat leaves the key in the door. The hero goes in and hides in a cupboard.
Like just an opportunistic murderer is like, oh, is that keys in the door? Yeah. Well, I was going to go next door to kill someone, but well. I will say, I was pretty happy with how they handled all this. They go a long way to make it reasonable that they've left the child behind, or to make it kind of realistic.
You keep being quite positive about this, but I have several memories of you slating this film and saying how much you hate it, Alan.
Yeah.
So,
well, I rewatched it.
Is this a Christmas miracle?
I rewatched it a couple of days ago, and yes, it did definitely. I liked it a lot more than I remembered. I still. Not to give too much away, it's not a film made for me. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, I kind of took it with a lot of, sort of respect. I think I didn't hate it in quite the same way. But yeah,
I had the theory that you just watched Dogma and they slag it off in that, and you thought you had to copy whatever Kevin Smith said, and I think maybe that's true. Yeah,
that's why I smoke so much weed.
Yeah,
and yeah, So yes, I was. They sort of bend over backwards to make it plausible that they could leave someone behind, and I think you need that. I think that is necessary. It also, but then because John Hughes is a good writer, not only does it play realistically, but you're also building up this idea of the family that he's going to miss. Well, that he hates, not hates, but he's sick of them, and then he misses them. It's the worried mother, the sort of father who's. We'll come back to that. But yeah, it's good writing, really is.
It's plausible without thinking what a terrible set of parents and just hating the characters, which I think is an important thing to...
Yeah. And it doesn't feel like all we're doing here is setting this up. And, when it is, he manages to make it so that they lose the passport in a scene where it's Kevin getting told off and all, making everything work together.
And there's a lot of very unrealistic character behavior, frankly. The way everyone interacts with the parents when they're trying to tell them what's happened is not remotely how real people are, but something about how it's handled, it just plays, it just gets away with it. The fact that the police just they send the policeman over to go and check on this kid who's alone, and when the door isn't answered, he's like, tell him to count the kids again. It's like, well, obviously, the kid's just not answering the door, for fuck's sake. Like, obviously.
Or if the kid's not there, right, I want to report a missing child, please. Because they don't know where they've left him, do they? As far as they know, they could have lost him in the airport or whatever. I mean, But anyway, and we're setting up... Shall we talk about Macaulay Culkin before we get into the film?
Yeah.
It's obviously the beating heart of these films.
Yeah. And something of an icon of the time. don't you think?
Yeah, definitely. I mean,
90s kid actor, friend with Michael Jackson, so there was some notoriety with him there. He just seemed to be living a sort of dream existence of a 10-year-old in the 90s.
I mean, I think Uncle Buck was the one that started it. Went into Home Alone, and then what else? Richie Rich.
Didn't he do a film where he's a murderer?
The Good Son.
He does look kind of like a villain, a little creepy kid.
Well, he does have that kind of sunken eye thing, doesn't he?
Yeah.
I'll just say up for it, like revisiting these films, I was surprised at how bad an actor he is.
Yeah.
He was a lot better in my mind.
I was skirting around that, but as a kid, I remember finding him quite relatable and
Totally
pleasant to watch. But yeah, rewatching these, he's a bit shit and stilted, and I don't think he brings much to it that another... I feel like another kid could have done a better job.
Well, the thing is,
like,
right,
he's fine,
not...
but...
you said he's a bit shit there. He's not. He's terribly shit. He's really, really shit. But every line of dialogue is awful.
It's all delivered like this.
Yeah.
He delivers everything like he's talking in some kind of commercial. His intonation always goes up at the end of every sentence.
It's like a parrot trained to speak. You know, there's no meaning behind any of it. It doesn't know what it's saying.
But that's essentially what he is.
Do it like this, Macaulay, and then he'd do it like that, or whatever. I don't know. He does just strike me as someone who, he could probably do an all right job in adverts or something. But I think that there is something just really earnest and gee whiz about him, but still with a sort of almost adult self-awareness that I think works in this part.
There's definitely a sort of a prodigious nature to him, and and that really works for the character. And he's got that kind of je ne sais quoi, you know, that kind of X factor that certain people have, and the camera just loves them. He's got that. It's just not married with any acting ability, which is a shame. But he has that thing where that just it's innately you want to watch him, and so he retired sort of when he was about 15.
Well, yeah, it completely changed the direction of Home Alone 3. They were writing it for him as a teenager, and then he quit acting, and they were like,
"Oh, I didn't know that."
Yeah, but so he kind of quit. I guess he'd done what he needed to do. He wanted a normal life for a while, and he has come back to acting a little bit. But I actually watched something with him in. I found it on YouTube. It's a little sort of short film with him in, and to be honest, I thought he was quite good. Like he was, good, decent actor. Nothing, certainly not a bad one.
Isn't there a bit of a Culkin clan? Like all his siblings? I'm sure his brothers popped up in Fargo.
Rory Culkin.
One of them's in Signs. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Kieran Culkin is the younger one in this, plays the cousin.
Oh.
So he's in that, and and then he was in some films, wasn't he? Roger Dodger, so. Yeah, did you know his aunt is Bonnie Bedelia off of the Christmas film Die Hard?
Interesting.
That's Macaulay Culkin dealt with. We don't have to talk about
I don't think we've been very kind to him, but for this film, whatever it is doing it works. I think we can agree. Like, I don't hate watching him.
I must say, I do think a different kid in this role could have made this a better film. But it's fine, it works. Yeah. And, similarly, a different kid could have made it a worse film, but...
I think he does bring something to it. Yeah, there's definitely brings something to it. Not acting ability, but something. The mother and father, who are best known for being the mother and father in Home Alone, but
really, Catherine O'Hara.
Catherine O'Hara is best known for being Sally in The Nightmare Before Christmas, which
I think she's probably better known now as being the one of the leads on Schitt's Creek.
Oh yeah. It's this weird thing, Alan, where TV's really obsessed now with doing like TV shows that let them pretend they're swearing, but they basically just get to go up and be like they'll do a show called The Mad Sea Unt or something, and then they'll just go up at the Emmys and be like, The Mad Cunt, up for the best thing, and they just say
Pesci
it. And
alarm.
they're allowed to say it. They're allowed to say it. They're allowed to say it. It's a name. It's a name. Someone's name is Charles Unt. That's their name. Mad Cunt.
Whoa,
Schitt's Creek.
Joe
It's
Pesci.
it's shit SCHITT, so that's okay. It's not swearing.
Oh dear, don't approve of this. The
Mother
BBFC
motherfuckers.
You can't say that.
No, her name's Fuckers. Her name's Fuckers. It's about motherfuckers.
Meet the fuckers.
Motherfuckers.
Anyway, she's had a long and prestigious career.
She does
I
all stuff with
think.
Christopher Guest, doesn't she? She does all those films.
Yeah. The dad, who is the dad again? John Hurd.
Yeah, he's the dad out of Home Alone.
He's someone who I think gets cursed because people think they think they heard John Hurt on the phone. Then he turns up to set and it's too late to do anything about it.
Oh, a little Christmas movie connection here. He was married to Margot Kidder from Black Christmas in 1979 for 6 days, and then they separated.
He has got that kind of jovial dad look about him. It's quite good. Here's the thing I learned reading about this. The uncle character, because they've got all the cousins there with the uncle.
Yeah.
The uncle character was written for Kelsey Grammer,
Really?
apparently.
Yeah,
according to
specifically,
Wikipedia.
apparently,
It's great knowledge.
Oh, I did not know that.
He obviously turned it down.
Yeah. Well, it is a bit of a nothing part, isn't it?
Yeah, it's weird though because
Don't you know who I am?
I
I'm
bet-
Fraser Crane.
I bet Kelsey Grammer was in serious talks that went a long way to play the Malcolm McDowell role in Home Alone 5. So he's not that high end an actor.
There's a load of kids there that we don't need to worry about particularly. Did you notice, this is my first note, the sort of thing that really struck me, like, isn't that a massive house? Isn't that just
This family is so
a
privileged.
massive house?
Like, especially in the second one with their decadent holiday spending.
It has to be though. It has to be because there's like 20 kids living there, and it also you have to buy it that it's a prize jewel that these burglars would be drawn to.
Yeah, burglars never break into small houses. There's nothing worth.
No, I know, but they put more effort into this one house than would probably be worthwhile were it just an ordinary,
But,
Yeah.
But it really did strike me like that is a big house, and I never quite grasped. Do they all live together? Are the uncle, auntie, and cousins visiting?
I think they're visiting based on a few lines in the second film, but yeah, it's not particularly clear. And
They're visiting, and then they're all going off together to see the other brother in France, right?
something like that.
Yeah. So, because there's a lot of talk about sharing beds and stuff like that, he has to share beds with the bedwetter, and it's like, how many bedrooms does this place have? There's at least sort of 15 windows just on the front of the house.
I think it's important to set up that they're a family of extreme privilege because then you don't feel bad when he starts spending thousands and thousands of pounds of his father's money in the second film.
His dad gets very irate about it at the end, though.
Yeah, but that's because you don't get rich by spending money.
It's
do
because
you?
he saw how much the tip was, and he was just furious.
a whole piece of gum.
Yeah.
So, a large part of this is just Kevin having fun at home, doing things that he wouldn't be able to do if his family were there, all that kind of stuff. And it works because he has such a big family that you buy that this kid would really get something out of having an entire house that size to himself.
Yeah.
There is a little subplot going on where he has this creepy old man neighbor who he thinks is like there's like an urban legend about him or something, isn't there? Like he killed his family or something.
Something like that. Some kids at the start are making up stuff.
Yeah, the
about
older
how he-
brother tells him something. But the reason why I all that worked and I let it get away with so much is because the Macaulay Culkin Kevin is 8 years old. He's gonna believe a story about the next door neighbor murdered his family, whereas a normal person would go, well, obviously that's not true, is it? But he's a child, and all the other stuff that happens, like when he doesn't just.
I don't blame him for believing it based on the way that old man stares him out repeatedly. Every time he sees him, the old man just stares him down with this
This is just, you
stare.
can't even look at a child anymore. That's typical.
No, he doesn't. And then he gets to church and he's staring him out, and then he walks over, and then he very consciously sort of goes, "Oh, better smile," and then he smiles at the kid. No wonder he was fucking terrified.
He keeps staring at him because he keeps thinking, is that kid on his own? I'm sure they've gone off on holiday. They all left. That kid's there on his own. I haven't seen the parents come back for 2 days.
No, the first time he's outside his house. He's in church and he has a big chat
That is
where he
pretty
tells
creepy.
the old man to call his son, and then the old man's like, "But I'm scared. I can't. I'm scared." and then the old man just says, "Right, well, you better run along home now." For all he knows, he's there to watch the church service, and he's just telling this little kid to fuck off. He's like, "Right, you're done. Go home." Weird.
It is.
I don't like any of the stuff with that old man. It feels like tacked on,
Yeah,
like they needed some extra element, and ultimately he comes in to save Kevin when the burglars get him at the very end, and
Which doesn't
I just
quite
don't like
play,
it.
does it?
yeah, it's not like enough of a cool reveal or a happy ending. It's not like enough of a metaphoric parallel or anything like that plays into the subtext of, "Ooh, get over your fears and family is important." That doesn't play. I just don't think it needs to be there. Just give us one extra scene with Kevin going into the basement and not being scared of the heater, and that shows him learning to get over his fears, you know? I'd rather he beats the burglars of his own accord instead of being saved by what is, for all intents and purposes, a Deus Ex Machina.
It doesn't feel like it pays off particularly, yeah. But it is... Again, it's good writing. I think it's well handled in terms of what it is, and it's a nice little scene between them, sort of finding this common ground and all that sort of thing, and it's a nice little bit. I'm not got a problem with it.
No one should be lonely at Christmas.
So, I have a couple of questions about them leaving him behind. So, one of the conceits we deal with to help it make it more realistic is that they're rushing around because the alarm clocks don't go off, and they go to this whole thing of like, oh, the power's been knocked out to mean that we can't get the alarm clock's been turned off. The guy turns up at 8 o'clock, like on the dot, knocks on the door, and that wakes them up. So it's not like they've just woken up a bit later than expected. They've slept in till 8 o'clock in a house with 10 children. I think anyone with a child would know. And on a day when you're going on holiday and you're probably quite anxious and not sleeping well, and because you're stressed about getting fucking 10 kids onto a plane. So I don't buy that at all. That was one.
Yeah, plus
just...
kids tend to wake up at like 6 in the morning.
Yeah,
on
these
a
kids. Some of
weekend
these
anyway,
kids
when
are
they're
like
not going
under
to school.
10, aren't they? It's
Watching
like...
cartoons and stuff.
Yeah. So they ditched the kids in coach. They're in first class. I think because, it's difficult to film with a load of kids in it. It's easier just to film adults in a small plain set. Okay, yeah. What about that scene where the mother realises that they've left Kevin behind, which happens on the plane? She has a dream about something, and she wakes up, and then she's like, oh, something's wrong. Kevin! But there's no reason why she should make that realisation. As far as she knows, Kevin is sat in the back, in the cheap section, flying along nicely.
A mother knows, Alan.
She knew subconsciously, and she just hadn't pieced it together.
Mothers have a sixth sense connection with their children.
Is that right? Do you want to ask my mother about that?
Alan, you have a very unusual mother, Alan. I don't think you can use that as a gauge for any sort of family
My mum
bond.
would definitely buy this as like a, thing that, mothers know. They just know when their kids are in danger or not there.
I mean, I'm not even talking about that. I bet, in a kind of Derren Brown brains doing things you don't know about kind of way, I think she probably just realised he wasn't there, but like didn't want to tell herself because then she wouldn't get to go on holiday. And it was only later on when the guilt kind of got to her and she digested it a bit that she was like, oh yeah, I better had go pretend I care. She obviously doesn't care about a kid. You don't have like 15 kids if you care about them.
She's got 5 kids.
It's too many.
There are too many kids.
You can't give any one of those kids a proper upbringing if you've got that many other kids to look after. 3, I think, is about the maximum you can get away with. Space them out.
Interesting theory.
I do appreciate the contrivance that they're on a flight to Paris. Like, obviously that's going to be like a 8, 9, 10 hour flight from Chicago, probably.
Well, they're probably in Concorde, knowing their family riches.
I just think I buy it. Like, all right, yeah, this makes sense with the period of time that he's home alone and and all that kind of stuff. Like, there is really no turning back for the family.
Can you get a direct flight from Chicago to Paris? Wouldn't they have had to stop in like New York or something?
Oh.
Well, she struggles to get one back, doesn't she, for that very reason? So
Yeah, because they do get to Paris, don't they? I think, if you can fly from London to like LA without making a stop. I'm sure you could go from Chicago to Paris.
Yeah, but like Chicago, it's not as big an airport, is it? It's not quite the same.
Well, maybe they do. Maybe they make a stop at Washington or somewhere to transfer, and then they realise on the flight from there. And the airplanes all just look the same inside.
Maybe they had to transfer in a rush because they were late.
Yeah.
Anyway, my point is that I buy this much more than the domestic flight from wherever they are to
New York
Florida
to
in the
Florida.
second one.
Yeah. We're going to get about half an hour in when we finally see our villains of the piece.
Well, no. Joe Pesci's in like the opening scene.
Yes, he is, isn't he? But we don't know really that he's the villain. Then he's posing as a police officer because he's scoping out the houses in the
Great
area.
intro to that character, I think. I mean, I'll just say I think this is a tour de force performance from Joe Pesci. I think he's absolutely wonderful in this film. I think it says a lot about him that he was willing to clearly go for it to the level that he does, and an actor of his stature, he's a very, very good proper actor, and it's nice to see a different side of him here. Was this before My Cousin Vinny? Had he done comedy before? That's kind of what I'm getting at.
Lethal Weapon 2 was before this, where he played Leo Getz. So that was comedy. But yeah, I do agree. He totally goes, like, he's totally in it, isn't he? Like, for someone who is quite a respected and serious actor, albeit a bit of a mad bastard. Bastard isn't swearing in America, is it? We get away with that. He plays it with full gusto, and
honestly, I think this is one of the best performances of his career. I mean, not the best. He's obviously done better proper acting, but if I was doing like a top 5 Joe Pesci performances, I think this would be in there. It's great. He's full on Bruce Campbell, Evil Dead 2, like gurning and screaming and falling over. Although I did notice when the tarantula's on him, I did like that whenever there was a shot with his face and the spider in the same shot, it was very clearly a rubber spider, but then they'd like cut to a real tarantula on a close-up of some fabric, and then
ably assisted by his sidekick, Daniel Stern, who was in a big moment at this point. He followed this up with City Slickers, which is probably his most remembered thing. And he was a good, solid comedy actor.
Yeah,
he's fine.
Saying he's no Joe Pesci.
He looks good with an iron print on his face.
And have they deliberately gone with a sort of little and large theme here? Did they get
100%. Of course they have.
it's the Laurel and Hardy thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like one's small and thinks he's smart, and the other one's just an idiot.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, very, very. The clown who thinks he knows everything, and the one who knows he knows nothing.
But yeah, they work really well. I think they've got good chemistry together, and you know, the last 20 minutes of the film is really just them sort of like slipping on the floor, and then a lot of like gurning at the camera and making faces and mumbling. They do it really well. It could be, I think in later films in the franchise, we'll see actors just really sort of look like they're going through the motions with it. But here I think they do it really well. Like you say, Sol, I think they really, Pesci particularly, really commits to it, and he does his best.
Yeah. And even, just making a fool of himself, just sliding around on the ice. It's full-on bit of physical comedy that they're asking Joe Pesci to do there. That kind of, I can't stand up, like it, and he's obviously there's a point where it cuts to a stunt double who does a backflip, but it's still commendable work, I think.
And I think what Joe Pesci does bring to it, and this is why you want Joe Pesci, is genuine menace. You believe him, he's not a cartoon villain. You're just like, this guy had his way, he ripped Macaulay Culkin's face off.
I think it's an incredibly well-balanced mixture of genuine menace and warmth. He feels at home within a John Hughes Christmas film, but you do buy that he'd bite his fingers off, like he says at the end, if that man didn't hit him over the head with a shovel. So that's pretty much it for the cast, apart from a weird cameo by John Candy that I couldn't tell if it was intentionally a reference to Planes, Trains and Automobiles or not, or just John Hughes reusing the script leftovers.
Yeah.
I feel like this film would be a lot better if Macaulay Culkin's dad was played by Steve Martin and the subplot was about him having to hitch a ride with John Candy across the country. I'm going to pitch right now, actually. My pitch for a sequel is someone edit Home Alone and Planes, Trains and Automobiles together into one movie with a bit of After Effects to put Steve Martin over the top of the dad in some scenes, and I think you can make that work.
I do like Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. I'll just say that.
Can we talk about the film within the film?
Yes.
The film being Angels with Filthy
Anyway,
Souls, I
never mind.
believe it's called. Sort of pastiche of gangster films, which has become a little classic in itself. There's some really good lines in there. Like, keep the change, you filthy
everyone knows. Yeah,
that's the best line in the film. Great. The way they use it, although, it's very much film reality. No one would really think they were really listening to...
Yeah, and you wouldn't be that precise with the fast forward rewind on your
Yes.
VHS player either. But I think it was probably still fairly new technology back then, and people weren't familiar with how shit they were.
Yeah. How it plays, it works quite nicely. It gives the film some real character as well. Just having that little thing in there. He's watching it earlier on, and then and then it comes back later. But the major problem with that. Exactly. But the major problem with that is the idea that an 8-year-old child would be watching an old gangster film as his rebellious act.
Yeah, but that plays, because I think that's fine. Because it's obviously part of being Home Alone. That's obviously the video he's not allowed to watch. And I can totally buy this idea that maybe his dad's always watching that and loves it and he wants to, but he's not allowed to because it's inappropriate. I think that's fine.
Yeah.
I think it's great as a little bit with the pizza boy. I think maybe it goes one step too far when they then repeat the exact same gag with Marv. And then obviously it's 2 steps too far in the next film when Tim Curry does the exact same thing.
Yeah.
I think the first 2/3 of this film, 3/4 of this film, are fairly 4/5 of this film are fine. They're pretty standard John Hughes fare. They're fine. But I do think it's that final 15 minutes where it really comes to life, and that is what people remember for a reason. That's why we're all here. It's to see a kid defending their house with Rube Goldberg booby traps against Joe Pesci, and a lanky man getting their faces smashed in by tins of paint.
And some of the violence is really, they don't hold back on it. It's like you feel it. Like when he puts his foot through that nail. Oh my god! That is the one that gets you.
This is my major problem with it. And when you've said, Sol, earlier, I've sort of hated this film in the past. I think that it goes too far with the violence, because it's one thing to do the whole he gets sprayed with glue and then feathers get chucked on him. It's quite another to smash him in the face with an iron and then set them on fire. It feels like you crossed a line. Because
I like it. I think
about it.
I wish it was more violent. I wish there was blood and guts and it's a live action cartoon. It's fine.
I don't think sets a good example to kids, because it says, if you jokingly smash a paint tin into your dad's face, it'll just bounce off and it'll go, oh, and then it'll be a right laugh.
No. If burglars are trying to kill you and invade your home, then feel free to smash them in the face with a tin of paint. That's the message there.
But then but it also suggests that it'll get back up and keep coming at you, and then you'll have that on your conscience.
Well, that's just saying, make sure you got some more traps prepared. I like the cartoonish violence. I love the last 15 minutes of this film. I think it just comes to life. It's wonderful. And I do think it goes into full-on cartoon violence mode. I think perhaps, if anything, the film would have benefited from 1 or 2 moments that are at that level earlier on, just so it doesn't feel quite as disconnected. But I think it plays fine. I think if you're too stupid to be able to differentiate this film from reality, then you're probably too stupid to rig up an elaborate trap that's going to injure someone. I watched loads of cartoon violence as a kid, and I'm a pacifist. So
it's such an such a painful memories. I will never live in this world of violence.
I remember me and my friends tried putting a bucket on like atop of a door so that like when a parent would like move the door to try and get in the room, it would hilariously fall on their head. But it never quite worked
It's a
out.
metal bucket.
We did that to Johnny's room at uni, didn't we? We put a load of cups of water in his room, so when he'd open the door, they'd go all over the floor.
Yeah, what I do like about the film is that the traps, the booby traps, and all things like that. It all feels totally within the grasp of a child's kind of mind. Not just to kind of come up with the ideas, but also to practically put them into action. Like I think they do make that effort to make it at least that sense of realism to it.
You know, it wouldn't be interesting, for whatever reason, it wouldn't be interesting to watch if Joe Pesci walked through the door and then Macaulay Culkin threw some glue on him and threw a load of feathers in his face and ran off.
Or stabbed him in the
It
chest.
would play the same way. But because what actually happens is he walks through the room and there's a bit of cling film there with the glue on it that goes in his face, and then he pulls a bit of string out of the way that releases a pencil from a fan, and the fan blows the feathers in his face. Somehow that's like really entertaining and funny and just charming, and I don't know what the difference is, but it is significant.
Timing. Yeah, you're right.
If he just walked in the house and Macaulay Culkin shot him with an air rifle, which I guess essentially isn't far removed, but if he just walked into the house and he shot him, it wouldn't be a fun film. But if he walked into the house and trips a tripwire that, you know, lights a candle that burns a piece of string that removes a weight that pulls the trigger on the gun, suddenly it's a great film.
I have a question about the ending, because he calls the police, and which is something he should have done a long time ago, and says something like, but then he reports there's burglars at his neighbour's house, the house across the street, and then because they're going over there or something, or they've already been there, but then they catch him, and then the old man turns up, but it's not the old man's house, is it? I didn't quite grasp what happened with all that.
Well, he's 8, isn't he? So he's an idiot.
But I mean, I didn't grasp it within the film either. Like, I wasn't quite sure what happened, and also
I think he's trying to lure them over the road, so that the police won't realise he's home alone. I don't know.
That's what happens, because at the end of the film, they get arrested and he's not involved, and the old man is apparently complicit in that. He's like, oh yeah, we'll not mention anything about this. Like, surely the old man should go, by the way, this kid's just home alone. You might want to look into that.
Yeah.
Really, it definitely just slipped at the end there. The ending definitely gets just that little bit sloppy there. I'm not quite sure what happens, but it's all designed from a writing point of view. It's designed so that we can get the mum comes back, reunited with the kid, not arrested for leaving him alone.
Exactly.
And no repercussions, yeah. And because they even go to the trouble of them having broken into the neighbour's house before, so that when the police turn up there, it's like, oh, look, the wet bandits. Yeah, we know who you are. It just felt a bit contrived, but I guess they needed to get away with not having Kevin exposed as a child alone or something.
Yeah. I mean, it's not a perfect film, Alan, I'll be honest. There's flaws in it.
Really?
Only that 15 minutes before the very end are the perfect film, so...
Let's rate it.
I'll go first. I think it's, like I said, this is not a film that I return to very often. I think it works. It's very competent. It's fine. And I think it probably means more to a lot more people than it does to me if you grew up watching this every year and have that attachment to it. I think it works just fine. And I think there are worse films that you could pick to watch as a family getting in a Christmassy mood. So it's a 7 out of 10 from me.
I really loved this film when I was a kid. I think it does really play to children, which is obviously the intention. I think that ending 15 minutes, as I keep saying, is wonderful. I think everything leading up to it is fine. So yeah, similar. I think it's a solid family Christmas film. It's a bit cheesy in places. It doesn't all quite work, but it's good. It's good fun. 7 out of 10 as well from me.
Yeah, I'm just going to echo that pretty much. I think it's really well written for the most part, and I think that's a big advantage to it. I do think Macaulay Culkin brings something to it that really brings it alive, albeit not his acting. Yeah, it's fairly solid 7 out of 10.
Wow. 2 years later.
2 years, yeah, is all it took for Home Alone 2 Lost in New York.
It just, I don't know, it feels like an odd choice for Home Alone 2 to set it in New York rather than, contrive a way to have him home alone in the house again, or...
Well, when a big part of the appeals of it are, like, kid defending home from a bunch of criminals with traps and things, and just, like, kid home alone, that is part of the wish fulfillment thing. Exactly. And then when you don't do that, yeah.
Well, I think, obviously they felt like they had to do something different, like to make it into something slightly wider.
Well, you say that, but then they just do the same stuff again.
They didn't change the script, just the location.
Yeah. Like, all that stuff you were saying, Alan, about how they actually... All the contrivances that it takes to get him home alone in the first film, you buy it and it works and it's fine. Here, just everything that happens is just like, oh, for God... You're up against the whole, like, oh, well, could this really possibly ever happen again? And obviously it needs to happen, otherwise there won't be a film, but... They just do a lot of the very same things. The alarm doesn't go off. They all just rush onto the plane without
I hate that
him.
moment. We slept in again! Fuck off.
Yeah...
Super sped up footage and all that shit. Fuck off.
Yeah, you just can't do it twice in a row. You've got to make it different in some way. I guess he does it. They end up getting on the wrong plane.
Yeah, I don't mind the plane element, to be honest. I think it's handled very well, the him getting on a different plane thing. It's everything leading up to that and around that I don't like.
I was surprised, like, again, they go to a great effort to make it work. Like, he doesn't just run up and go, oh, that's my dad, I'm supposed to be on this plane. Oh, go on then, which is what I was expecting. They have, like, oh, we dropped your boarding card, it's in here somewhere. Do you know what I mean? It feels like, make sure he gets on and gets with his family before you leave him.
I also like that they repeatedly reference the fact that he got left home alone last year and he's pissed off about it. Because you don't get any of that in the first film because he doesn't really understand. But I like that this film is dealing with a begrudged Kevin McAllister. There's an element of him trying to get revenge on his family for not being good family to him.
And they are, if they had like ignorance on their side in the first film, haplessness, ignorance, whatever, this film, they're terrible parents. We have that, they're terrible family. We have that whole thing at the start where he's at the he's doing the Christmas Carol concert or whatever, and his older brother starts to make fun of him,
humiliated
by
in front
lighting
of
up his
everybody.
ears from behind, which is apparently hilarious to all of the parents in that auditorium who are terrible parents. If they're uproariously laughing at that,
Hey, he's not there, kid.
and then Kevin reacts kind of, obviously he overreacts and pushes him over, but he's just being publicly humiliated. And then his parents take him to task for it later on and have this sort of weird intervention trial thing at home, like he's some sort of tear away.
His reaction is extremely appropriate. If anything, quite calm. Because he just shoves him. It's not like, oh, I'm going to push you off this ledge. He just gives him a little shove and, things happen.
Yeah.
People really love Home Alone 2 Lost in New York. I think it's got a real nostalgia, almost more so than the first film on its side. For whatever reason, I think this one gets played on TV more. I genuinely, I don't know if I'd ever seen this film before I watched it for this podcast. I think I may have just seen 15-minute chunks of it in so many different instances that I basically saw the whole film, but completely out of order.
No, I think you're right. This is the one, I'd seen this one much more than the first one, and I think a part of that is that I always feel like this one is always the one on TV in the build-up to Christmas, and I don't know if that's just sort of like lazy channel schedulers sort of being like, Home Alone 2, that must be twice as good as the other one, so we'll
twice
put
as
that
cheap
instead. But yeah, for some reason this is always the one that's on TV when I just sort of flicking through channels and Home Alone pops up every December.
It's to the point that I rewatching the first one, which I did just before we started recording. I didn't remember how much of the second film was just rehashing the first film.
Oh yeah. So much of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is,
and it's because you have Kevin in the hotel, when he gets to New York, he uses his dad's credit card and rents a room, and Tim Curry's the snooty hotel manager.
And I guess there's an element of wish fulfillment, child fantasy about that, but it just doesn't play the same way. It's ooh.
They run through it very quickly as well. Like, all of that
Yeah.
hotel stuff is actually a much smaller part of the film than I remembered it being.
Yeah.
Like, he gets room service and, like, he raids the minibar, and that's sort of it.
And Tim Curry is painted as an evil villain for just trying to do his job and, deal with a stolen credit card and look out for the welfare of a child.
He does take an instant dislike to him, though. He's very...
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, I did. Macaulay Culkin, yeah. I did like the shot of the Grinch doing his little grimace, the kind of grimace / smile that faded into Tim Curry doing a similar smile, which was also a callback to the Grinch being shown in the first film. But yeah, Tim Curry. I mean, so the cast in this film, if ever there's a saving grace, you've got Joe Pesci and Marv, Daniel Stern, back from the first film, again bending over backwards to contrive a reason why they would be in New York at the same time.
Well, I don't think they even bother, do they? They have to say that, well, yeah, they escaped to get out of prison, and then it's just pretty much like, oh, walking down the street, oh, look, it's that kid.
yeah, doesn't work. I mean, you kind of just go with it because it's nice to have them back, and I think it's a trade-off that you're willing to go with how little it makes sense.
I don't think it would be difficult, would it, to contrive a reason? Just they escape from prison and they're like, oh, let's go get that kid who put us in prison and kick his face in.
Well, yeah, but then how are they going to know he's in New York where he's not meant to be?
It's probably on the news. A missing child. Lost in New York.
I think most of the stuff with them works insofar as it's very entertaining, even if it is largely nonsense. You've got the family back from the first one, they're fine. You've got Tim Curry, who's a very, very welcome addition to the cast. You've got Rob Schneider, who isn't.
This is good Rob Schneider, though, when he's like used to an appropriate amount.
He's on a leash, yeah. You've got Hollywood elite member of the Actors Guild, Donald Trump, here in one of his many acting performances where he will claim residual checks to this day for acting as part of the Hollywood elite.
Greatest actor.
It's so weird, isn't it? Seeing him in this, like, it's so weird.
Do you know what? I was just thinking, like, oh, let's not even mention the Trump thing. It's such a cliche thing. But I watched that scene and it's like he gives him a proper like double take. Oh, look at that arse, kind of, as she walks away, kind of. It was really weird. He properly gives him the old double take.
He's not a good actor, is he? And it's like he was so pleased to have remembered his line that take that he's kind of like going, yeah, you did it, Trump, you did it. It's like, but he really lingers in the background. It's very weird. I mean, I don't think I had any concept of who Donald Trump was when I first saw him in this film, and I think I did think, what was that about? Like, who's that?
Is it Donald Trump's building that they were filming? Was it in the contract or something that he had to have apart?
I think he is just a presence synonymous with New York, really, and
yeah,
that kind of
it's
American business, New York, rich, elite.
It's basically part of the montage, isn't it? It's basically he goes to the top of the Twin Towers. He probably has a hot dog. He looks at some pigeons.
And that too. Seeing the Twin Towers and him on top of it was like, oof, God, wow, different time.
Yeah, and then Donald Trump shows up. Tim Curry's good in this, isn't he? He's like
giving
the
it
best
his
thing
all. In it. Yeah, even when they redo the whole thing with him playing the film.
I think you're mistaken, sir.
They redo the whole thing with him playing the video and characters reacting to it because they think it's a real person and stuff. And
you were smooching. It's like that. How like weird that scene is, where it's just a man gunning down a woman in cold blood, and how contrived that is compared to when they do the same joke in the first film, and Tim Curry just makes it work regardless.
What I love about that is that it's really contrived dialogue to make it work, and then it doesn't work at all because he's saying like you were smooching with my brother. It's like what? Not relevant to anything.
Well, that's it. I assumed it. You feel like it should be, you were smooching with, and then you go straight to Chip or whatever the other guy's name is or something, and then they're like, "What?"
I like he goes, "Get on your knees and tell me you'll love me." And like every time they say that line, like there's always a look, like as if like it's a bit much in it for a kids' film. It's a bit, just a bit too far.
Yeah, he's brilliant, and he's not in it enough because, like I said, all this hotel stuff is really just a very small part of the film, and most of the time it is just Kevin wandering around the streets and that fucking pigeon woman.
Oh, I hate the pigeon woman. I cannot stand the pigeon woman.
They just feel like they need to have another like old person, but she's not even that old.
Yeah. But they've already got the toy shop owner. It's like, how many fucking eccentric New Yorker characters does Kevin McAllister have to meet on his little adventure? Like, is Tim Curry not enough? Are the burglars being there not enough? We have to have a toy shop owner. Fine, all right. So that sets up why it's bad and he can't just let the burglars steal the money and the insurance sort it out. Fine. But then they have this pigeon woman who adds nothing. She's just there. She goes, I'm good at using up a bit of runtime. I don't know. I listen to Motley Crue up here. I listen to Pearl Jam. I listen to all the great music. And the film stops dead whenever she appears. I hate it.
But it is the same as the old man in the first film in that it doesn't really add anything.
I didn't really like the old man in the first film either.
Exactly, but like I say, in that film, it just about gets away with it. With this one, it's so much more contrived to have her involved, and then the pigeons rescue him at the end or whatever it is.
Yeah, again, he doesn't save the day again.
Yeah.
It's really annoying. And I don't think this actress is old enough or warm-looking enough, haggard-looking enough. They should have got, like, Betty Davis was still alive at this point. They should have got her. She'd have been brilliant. Post-stroke Betty Davis.
She was fresh off the Oscar win, though. Brenda Fricker won the Oscar, like, the year before. It was for...
Oh shit, Betty Davis wasn't alive. Sorry, now they couldn't have used her. Never mind. Brenda who? This actress won an Oscar?
Yeah, I've
never seen her in anything else.
She's the mum in My Left Foot. Daniel Day-Lewis.
I've never heard of that film.
Daniel Day-Lewis, he can only use the one foot, but he writes novels.
You must have heard of My Left Foot.
He won an Oscar for it.
It's like the go-to quote-unquote serious acting movie.
Player disabled and get an Oscar.
Oh, Irishman born with cerebral palsy. Yeah. Okay.
I have to say, it was very jarring how John Williams just couldn't help himself from flirting with the see the birds, tuppence a bag melody whenever she was on screen.
Yeah.
Talking about the music, actually, we haven't touched on the score for these films.
We completely missed John Williams on the first one, but he scores both of these films, which is insane.
I think the music's probably most notable for being what Danny Elfman blatantly based his entire career on for the next 25 years. There is so much Nightmare Before Christmas score in the first Home Alone film. And, I say this as someone who loves Danny Elfman, and I think the music for The Nightmare Before Christmas is wonderful, and I think he refined what was there, but it's very similar.
I mean, it works. I think it's all good. I don't really have much to say about it now, to be honest. It's just good John Williams score. It didn't stand out to me as especially John Williams-esque, but
I agree.
It's fine.
Well, I say it's that Danny Elfman-esque.
Yeah.
But before he was an established film composer, really.
So, just while we're talking about the old people in this, you mentioned the toy shop owner. I thought he was going to be dead. I thought he was going to be a ghost for the longest time, because when Macaulay Culkin first talks to him, he's buying something from him at the shop, and he gives him these doves, and then he's like, "Oh, but old Mr. Duncan," and he turns around and he's gone. And then I was like, I would have put money on later on in the film he'd have been talking to like someone else who a
Mr.
police
Duncan,
person.
he died 10 years ago this very day.
Mr. Duncan, he passed away not 50 years ago, or something
how
like
good
that.
would that have been if they did that, and then they did the same thing with the pigeon woman, and then they did the same thing with the staff at the hotel, and slowly but surely,
the ghost
Kevin McAllister realised everyone was dead.
Yeah. All right. So the thing that annoys me most about this film is that you have Kevin in the hotel, you have him in this fantastic, massive toy shop, and yet the whole climax of we're going to set up all the booby traps and trick the burglars takes place at an abandoned, well, not abandoned, but a home in the middle of renovation, which struck me as something so, like, just tonally off with, like, do that thing in the hotel, do that in the toy shop where you've got so
toy
much
shop
more to
makes
work
so
with.
much sense, doesn't it?
It really does.
And that's where I thought it was going. Because they were saying, like, we're going to stake out here in the toy, in the little houses and all that, and Kevin's going to come in and use all the toys and Christmas, set everything up. But instead he lures them around the corner to his uncle's home or whatever it is, which we have no attachment to. It's
like living out a child's fantasies, being home alone, getting left in the toy shop, or maybe he gets accidentally locked in, or he does it deliberate to catch them or whatever. But that's your classic, isn't it? Like, it just makes so much sense. Why even why flirt with it? And I wonder if they couldn't afford the location or something. Like, let's use a stripped back building with nothing but floorboards and walls. That'd be good, wouldn't it?
It's annoying as well because the booby traps would, by their very nature, all be very different. The booby traps he goes with are basically just more of the same. This sets you on fire. This is a bit sticky. This you slip on it. This smacks you in the face. Whereas, he's got all sorts of toys he could play with in there. Remote controlled aeroplanes and little robots that could go after him.
So
and
much stuff,
I guess they already did toy cars in the first one. Bouncy balls and it'd be great. Pogo sticks that are rigged to shoot at them. And it was when I was watching it, I was sat thinking, how on earth are they gonna contrive a way for him to spend the night in this toy shop without being caught? And then it was this slow, sorry realization of, they're not.
And
it's annoying because it would have worked so easily if he went and hid out similarly to how they were doing overnight, knowing that they were gonna come and break in, and maybe the old man who runs the shop sees he's in there but knows he can trust him or takes pity on him or whatever because he knows he's a good boy deep down, some bullshit like that. It wouldn't have been difficult. It's just stupid.
Yeah, really weird.
Yeah,
and then either that or the hotel. You've set up two locations.
Exactly.
Use one of them.
Yeah, because again, the hotel, like all the traps, the things he could use to, I don't know, like the baggage wheelie things, whatever. I don't know. He could dress up as a hotel porter and do some Bugs Bunny-esque sort of trickery with that. I don't know, but
big,
it just
must be a
feels
massive
like you say, like
in
there's
the hotel, the stuff there.
Trap their tie in the trouser press, something like that.
There's just opportunity for variety and so much more. It's just, it's really irritating that we have these two locations set up, which would be so much better than just derelict home where he's going to do the same shit. Even to the point where, like, they're going up the stairs and they know that the paint buckets are coming and they're, like, doing this, like, 1, 2, 3, and then they, like, go up and then obviously he's got, another one ready for them. It's just,
I must admit, though, I think when they, again, like the first film, when they get into the defending your home, the siege sequence, I do find it very entertaining and very enjoyable, even though it is just rehashing the same old shit. It feels like a missed opportunity, but I think it works in a way that most of this film doesn't.
I don't know. It didn't really work for me. I think because it was so much of a rehash.
Well, one rehash that really didn't work for me was the emotional stakes, because in that first film, he's a little kid who thinks he's wished away his family and they've disappeared out of existence. And then he regrets that and he wants them back. In this film, he knows exactly where they are. He knows how he lost them. He's just waiting it out and having a good time in the meantime. For some reason, he doesn't contact the police and say, hello, I've been left, whatever.
Because he's pissed off with his parents and he's having his own little adventure
there you go. Okay, I'll buy
as
that.
a kind of fuck you And that's it. I do buy that. I think that works quite nicely. That he's being spiteful.
You do still have this moment where he's like looking into the cityscape and going, "Oh, mummy, I miss you so much," and he's thinking about her. And
Well, that's his
rain
character
and stuff.
arc, isn't it? That
Yeah,
he comes to realise the same thing as last time, that he actually does love his family.
But he's not missing them. He knows where they are. He's not worried about them this time. It just didn't work on the same level, and they were just trying to rehash the same thing, and it didn't work.
Yeah.
Also, these kind of toy stores only exist in films where there's no sort of like, plastic robot look, there's no Transformers, no Barbies, no nothing like that. It's all really quaint, like rocking horses.
Carved
teddy
fucking
bears.
turtle doves.
Oh, don't get me started on those. When he gives that turtle dove to that pigeon lady at the end, it's like, and she seems happy about it. It like irritates me so much. Oh, great, you can hang it on the tree that you won't be having next year because you'll.
She's got hundreds of trees.
Oh shit! Yeah, actually, she does.
That was it. So that whole thing about that is like he's like, "Oh, I'll never forget you. You're like a really important person to me that I don't know anything about." And I just want my picture of sequel is like 30 years later, where this 70-year-old woman turns up on his doorstep and is like, "Remember
And
me?"
he has to rig the house to keep her out because she's trying to get him.
Oh dear, it's supposed to be a beautiful moment, I suppose. And what I hated about that at the end was that they're having like their Christmas morning, and he sort of suddenly has this like, "Oh, I need to go and tell that woman that someone's thinking about her as she's dying alone on the freezing cold streets of New York." And he goes off and speaks to her. Left the hotel. Nobody noticed. They fucking lost him again within.
What do you
12
expect?
hours. They should not be allowed
Yeah,
to keep
that's-
those children. They should be taken away and put into
That's
care.
that is well within believable confines of this franchise. That goes along with everything we've seen up until that point. They're bad parents.
They're
They
terrible
can't keep an eye on their kids. Yeah.
I at least thought that he was going to invite her to the hotel for like, presumably they'll have a Christmas dinner. They've just had this whole like literal truckload of presents delivered by Mr. Duncan, and they're all really excited about them, even though presumably they're going to open them up and they're going to be very impersonal, just generic toys and whatnot. But they're all very excited about them. They're not labelled either. They are just
Okay.
literally going in and picking out crap. Anyway.
Well, it's probably Lego. Everyone's happy with Lego. It's fine.
I haven't got Lego. It's too
I just thought,
branded.
like,
It's wooden blocks, wooden building blocks.
It was just a step too much for me to have this incredible decadence that this family can afford and receive.
But I also like the idea that New York is. It's probably about like 100 meters across. It's just like, oh, that Christmas tree is really near the hotel. It's really near the shops. It's really near Central Park.
The mum hops in a police car. They probably put the siren on for her and everything.
The worst police people, like, God, when
Yeah.
she's like just having a very casual conversation and she's like, "I'm going to report my missing son," and then he's like, "Oh well, how long has he been missing? Oh well, he's fine, I'm sure." Really annoying.
Yeah, it's not.
Well, yeah.
It's not like, oh, you're missing. Oh, look, all right. Well, how can I help? It's just like, well, have you reported it yet? Ah, well, be right, won't it? They'll find him. Don't worry, the police will find him. You are the police.
I think it's very good writing. It's a full character arc within the span of a sentence, pretty much.
Yeah.
We haven't really talked about Harry and Marv yet in this film.
No, we haven't actually.
They're there. I think they're an injection of
Hate.
good shit. No, I like them. I love them. I love watching them. They're one of the only things that, like I say, it's utterly contrived and still rehashing stuff that they're in this film and what they do with them. But I'm happy to watch that. I can watch these two fall over all day.
I had flashbacks when I was watching it this time. The high-pitched screams that Daniel Stern makes when he's being electrocuted.
Oh, God.
I had flashbacks to being really disturbed by that as a child.
Well, I was disturbed by the fact that
What
he's
is that?
such a
He's
high...
screaming in pain. He's screaming in pain.
into a
He turns into a skeleton.
Yeah.
And then what does
That's a John Hughes favourite, that is. That's just like John Candy
proper
in
cartoon,
Planes, Trains and Automobiles turning into a devil, isn't it?
cartoon reality? But yeah, he's screaming in pain. He turns into a skeleton. So what does Kevin do? Turns up the power. What a sadistic evil little kid he is.
These guys were going to bite his fingers off last time. They're going to kill him if he doesn't kill them first, and he's just baffled as to why his deadly traps aren't killing them. They keep surviving.
Well, I wanted to ask that as well. Have they got superpowers or what? What's going on here? Are they indestructible? They're
Cartoon logic.
Wolverine type.
I guess it's an escalation. It's a natural progression from the cartooniness of the last one. What are they going to do now? And the stakes are that they were going to rob the till money that Mr. Duncan was going to leave overnight for God knows what reason, and then donate it to the children's hospital, which Kevin has a relationship with because he walks by and waves at a very sickly, sad-looking boy, which I quite liked. So, oh right, yes, that's made it relatable now.
Did you buy that as well? That a toy shop would give up the one, like, the
biggest
busiest
day
night
of the
year's profits, the one night that they spend the rest of the year basically like selling and like loss leaders and advertising towards turning a profit on that one night. Do you buy that?
It's not actually. It's
I
all.
buy that old Mr. Duncan would do that. He seems like a
That's why
man.
that's in the next film. His son is trying to oust him off the board because he's like he's an 80s yuppie type. And he has to defend it. But yeah, I think it's not the whole. It's probably not the whole takings. It's just the ones he takes on his magic ghost till.
Right.
It's just that one, and it's like a little.
That's
it's
still a
just
fucking
little,
chest full of money.
yeah, it's
like
good.
literally
it's
a
good
chest.
publicity, though, isn't it? Which he takes in cash. He just sort of pushes it through the letterbox of the orphanage, just note by note. Hope they get it.
Right.
Well, for me, it's it's just the first film again, but not done as well. And in that classic sequel way, it tries to do the same thing that made made everyone love the first film, but it just tries to do it bigger. And they go to New York and all this. But as a result of that, you don't need the hotel, the toy store, and the renovated house. You don't need the pigeon lady and old Mr. Duncan. It's just bloated. It's far too long at 2 hours. It should be at least half an hour shorter. And it's a 4 out of 10 from me. Again, maybe you like the film more if you have some personal attachment to it, if you watched it a lot when you were a kid, but not for me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's fair.
I agree that it's a classic case of diminishing returns, isn't it? You do the same thing again, it's just not really as interesting. And yeah, there's definitely bits of it that are perfectly watchable and kids' film and all that. I give it a 5.
Well, I guess I'm the most positive then. I think it's very easy to sit through, as messy and contrived and a rehash as it is. There was enough in it that I enjoyed, even though it's not a good film exactly. I kind of agree with everything we've said, but I still give it a 6 out of 10, which I think is quite generous. But
That is so generous.
But it's Christmas.
The season of goodwill, Cal.
Well, call me Harry Lime if that's the case.
Well, you just wait until we get to Home Alone 3, Calvin.
Yeah,
Which
right.
is right
well,
now.
Did you two rewatch? Because I did not go back to rewatch.
I did actually. Yeah, I went back and rewatched this film. I watched this, I think, once on video. I seem to remember I had it rented out. Maybe when I was off ill. Although probably not when I was a kid. So I must have been about 8, probably 1998. I'm guessing it will have been if I rented it on video.
Yeah, I mean, you say rewatch as if I'd seen it before, which I hadn't. I don't think. I didn't remember any of it anyway. Put it that way.
This was the last theatrically released Home Alone. It was an attempt to keep the franchise going without Macaulay Culkin, who quit acting. And they just said, "Fuck it! Why can't it be a new kid? No one's here for Culkin, are they? They're here for the concept of a kid defending their home."
Mm-hmm.
Which is true to a degree.
I think Alex D. Linz, who plays Alex Pruitt, is a far better actor, far more likeable presence, personally, than Macaulay Culkin as Kevin McAllister.
See, I might be able to go with better actor, but I think, like I say, I think Macaulay Culkin's just got some sort of presence. that makes him what he was.
I remember finding this kid very relatable as a kid for whatever reason. He was a real, like, yeah, that's a cipher I can put myself on. And I never really had that with the first two Home Alone films.
Is that because Macaulay Culkin was likeable?
It's interesting that he appeals to you, Alan, isn't it? You know who else he famously appealed to?
Oh dear. Oh my.
Oh.
So Home Alone 3, is it just... my memory is that it's just the same thing again. A kid is home alone and then burglars come in and he tricks it up to...
I think it's got a nice amount of freshness to it. It's not... It's a middle-class home and family, so it's a lot more relatable to the average viewer than this sort of hoity-toity rich family having a hard time in the first one. He is not left home alone for one extended period. He is off with chickenpox, which is something that I think all kids more or less go through at some point in their childhood. And so he's left home alone for extended periods at a time during the day, whilst this group of high-end burglars, so not...
Europeans.
Yeah, they're not just two burglars out for a score. They're Die Hard style terrorists who are trying to intercept some high. Yeah. There's some bullshit with like a military grade computer chip that they were trying to.
It's very Bond actually. It's sort of international espionage.
Yeah.
What the hell? What? And how does the kid get wrapped up in that?
So to smuggle this chip through customs, they hide it inside a remote control car. And the bag gets mixed up with someone else's bag in the flight, and it ends up going to the grouchy old neighbour of this kid, who gives it to him as payment for him shoveling the snow on her drive. And then these criminals track the car down to her home and know it's somewhere in the area of this neighbourhood. And the kid sees them breaking into homes repeatedly, but they're so good at, deactivating alarms and leaving no prints that when the police come after he calls them, they won't believe him. They think it's a kid with an overactive imagination, and ultimately he has to take things into his own hands. And I think this kid is very likable. I think it's really handled very well.
Yeah.
That he takes stuff into his own hands. He's very resourceful. There's a lot of new playing with gadgets. For example, the remote control car gets a lot of use. He straps a video camera to it so he can use it to spy on the burglars. There's a whole like chase sequence where they're chasing the car around the neighborhood and he's controlling it from his bedroom window. And ultimately it all builds to a Home Alone siege where they realize that he has the chip, they're coming for it, and he realizes he has to defend his home while his mum's off at some work thing and his dad's off that day. And I'm just going to come out and say it. Like, in my memory, I had this down as a bad film. I remembered liking it as a kid, but it has 4.4 on IMDb, and I just kind of thought, oh yeah, it's some shitty kids film. On the rewatch, I think this is better than the first two Home Alone movies. I think this is the best one. I don't give a fuck.
Oh my.
Like, there's a little... I've heard this from other people. I know that Roger Ebert was among people who said this was the best one at the time. I think it just works better. It's a tighter, faster paced film. There's less contrivances, I would say, to get to what you're there for, which is ultimately this home invasion thing. I think that whole sequence is much bigger, and there's little elements of that, peppered in leading up to it. I just think it works better as a film. It's far more interesting. You've got more gadgets, more Rube Goldberg machines, and I like it.
Well, I don't agree that it's better, but I will say though, it is far better than I expected it to be. I don't think I've seen it before. The first thing I noticed in the credits was that it was written by John Hughes, which I was not expecting. And that definitely gave me hope. And I think that tells...
Did you know who notice who directed it?
I did look him up.
He's built a career for himself as the director of various films in which cartoon characters interact with live action human beings in a kind of awkward CGI form, the likes of Scooby-Doo, the Smurfs,
and Big Mama's House.
I think he was involved with one of the Garfield movies, and he directed your favourite film, Ellen. So
Big
I'm
Mama's
surprised
House.
you didn't recognise it.
Garfield.
really?
Garfield was the guy who directed one of the next films. So not.
Oh, right. So you know his connection to Home Alone, of course. He was the editor on the original Home Alone, which is presumably how he got
Home
this.
Alone 2, yeah.
Yeah, presumably.
Well,
how
he was
got
an
the
editor before he directed, and this is his directorial debut. Just in the right place at the right time, I guess.
I mean, he's a real hired gun of a director, but I'll be honest, I was surprised how much attempt at bringing a bit of flair to this film there was. There's a lot of little visual gags and camera movement. Like, it's more interesting than it needed to be. That's not to say it's particularly well directed, but it's fine. It's fine. I mean, I have to say, if there's one element from the first film this is sorely missing, it's the likes of Joe Pesci and whatever the other guy, Marv.
Yeah, they are quite an anonymous bunch of actors.
Yeah.
These bad guys. And there's not quite enough character there to bring them to life. And particularly those characters feel like run-of-the-mill kids film crap. You know?
Yeah, I mean, it tonally it feels like Even Stevens the movie or something like that. It does just feel like kids stuff, but I think it's kids stuff done very well. You know, I think the first two films walk an awkward line between being kid stuff and aspiring to something more, but not quite managing it. And I think this is just aimed at kids, and it does a very good job of it. Personally, there's a couple of notable cast members in there.
Go on.
We have Neil Flynn, the janitor from Scrubs, playing a policeman very briefly.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
I think he's played policeman in a lot of films and TV shows. We also have a very young Scarlett Johansson as the sister of Alex Pruitt. And,
Yes.
I mean, I'm surprised she went on to have a career after this, honestly. She's not very good at she.
What? What's wrong with her?
She's shit.
She doesn't do it. She barely does anything.
She doesn't show any... You wouldn't watch this film and think that kid's destined to have a career beyond this.
I don't know. I think she was fine. The brother is worse.
Maybe, but he didn't have a career after this. He's not even got a photo on IMDb, Alan.
Oh,
I'm looking at him now.
There was definitely a couple of issues I had. Just little details. Like, at one point, he's got a camcorder strapped to a car and he's driving it. A remote control car is driving it around. It's a big part of the thing. How is he getting a live feed off that camcorder that he's watching on a TV?
Beaming it across
Just
radio,
beaming, okay.
radio
Beams,
feed.
Beams, yeah, okay.
Can I guess one of your issues?
Okay, go on.
Is it the parrot, who, as we all know, is an animal that mimics noise it hears? It's just very, very interesting how the noises it mimics just happen to give the impression that it has like human level sentience.
It knows exactly what to say appropriately in the situation, or to make a joke. Yeah, I do hate a magic talking parrot. Yeah, and it doesn't even fit in. It doesn't even feel like it's a cartoon reality parrot. It doesn't work, does it? Yeah, that was definitely annoying.
Did they kill the bad guy at the end? Because the very end of the film is the three henchmen having their mugshots, and the last we see of the main guy, who's noticeably absent from that lineup, is him being blown to shit. You see him in that little igloo thing with a load of fireworks rigged to go off, and he kind of goes, oh, and then you see the explosion from like the policeman of all the fireworks going off.
Goes up into about 50 feet.
And the implication is, oh, we got him, but then he's not there at the end, so is he dead now?
Do we see them getting their mugshots?
Yeah, the other three actors are all there being photographed in front of the...
Are you sure? That happens in the fifth film. Are you sure you're not thinking of that?
No, it happens in this one as well. It does, because the two of them are still like a bit frozen and...
Oh, yeah, it's dead then, yeah.
Yeah, all right.
Cool. So, so it never fully explains to my satisfaction why they don't just get a babysitter. or anyone, just one of the people on the street, which they kind of do, the old lady across the road, say, can you check in on him? Why not just leave him with her? Or, like, anyone, they just go, look,
she's
I'll give
grumpy.
you 20 quid.
She's grumpy, and it's last minute, and she doesn't like how last minute it is, and they're just like, they go, right, he's fine, she's there, he'll feel like he's getting a bit of independence. Plus, this was 1997. That's like the height of, nanny cam paranoia about hadn't that babysitter just murdered a kid, and that was in the news. And...
It was a bit late on that. Chicken pox, right? It's been a long time since I had chicken pox, and I don't have kids. Is it a disease where you get spots and no other symptoms? Like, you're not tired, you're not feeling ill, you're not sat in bed.
You get really itchy.
That's apparently, yeah.
I don't remember, actually. I remember being in bed with it.
Lucky for us, our protagonist never has to worry about the itching. It doesn't seem to bother him. He's obviously too distracted.
No, he itches once to set up that he's coming down with it, Alan. He itches once at the start, and the neighbour goes, "Don't do that in front of a woman," which I thought would be a line you'd love.
Are they visible on him though? Like,
no, they
from the neck down.
They do look.
From the neck
they
down.
do look. He's got the measles on him. He looks suspiciously like spots drawn with eyebrow pencil, as opposed to like chicken pox. But whatever. And also, conveniently enough, doesn't get any on his face. It's just under his clothes.
He's a lucky boy. I did like the gag at the end. It's an obvious gag, and it doesn't really make much sense. But I did like that all the henchmen, as they're being lined up for their photos, have caught chickenpox and have got chickenpox in their photos. Yeah, I thought that was a nice little extra bit of.
If you get chickenpox as an adult, it is actually really serious.
It is, yeah, it is. Yeah. Well, their leader got blown to pieces, so they should count themselves lucky.
Another question.
Go on.
This might even be a thing in America. Especially in like sleepy, quiet suburbs. If you report, say, a burglary in the middle of the day, do 6 police come and kick your door down with their guns out? Or would they perhaps walk up, look for signs of entry, maybe knock on the door? Or would they just kick the door in?
Well, it is America.
You never know, do you? That's the thing.
It depends if he specified the ethnicity of the burglar on the phone. I don't know if we saw that, but...
Okay. Anyway, yeah, lots of little bits and pieces that I just thought they haven't quite.
I agree, but I feel the same way about the first one. There's a lot that doesn't work for me in the first one. I just thought this was a tighter, more compact, better version of the same sort of concepts, and
I don't find it tighter at all.
I liked it more. And there's more fun traps. One of them gets the head in a lawnmower, and he's dug out
a lawnmower, like stripes across his face with violence.
And he's dug out a he's dug out a pit under the bouncy trampoline, so they fall into some ice and probably get hypothermia and die. Like, I liked it. I liked it. It was good. I like it. I think it's good. I give it a 7 out of 10.
I mean, I thought it was kind of better than I expected. I suppose it was fine. I gave it a 5 out of 10.
I think I last saw it 20 years ago when, leading into Christmas, the teacher just put on a video and this was it, so I don't feel like I'm qualified enough to give it a ranking. I
was really pleasantly surprised with how enjoyable and decent a film it was, honestly, because, I mean, I was very hungover when I settled down to watch it, which might have helped my enjoyment. This is probably the perfect film to watch when you really don't want to have to pay much attention or think hard, but it just, I loved it. 7 out of 10. The same cannot be said for Home Alone 4. I watched Home Alone 2, 3, 4, and 5 back to back on Saturday because I had the worst hangover I've had since last year's Christmas party. See how it's relevant to the Christmas episode. And I didn't even drink that much. I didn't drink very much at all. I just got a really bad hangover, so I think I'm getting old. And
did the films help?
Home Alone 3 definitely did, yeah. Lifted my spirits a bit. This one, Home Alone 4, certainly did not help. And it was during this film that I figured out how to create a second color profile for the picture on my TV where I turn the brightness down to like the lowest setting, which I set it to for much of the film because it was hurting my head.
Was it too bright for your hungover eyes?
It was too bright.
I don't actually know anything about this one. I've not seen anything.
Okay, well, this is a TV movie. It's
Right.
a rather baffling film that is about the McAllister family, but they've recast everyone. So
Well, the thing is, I think it's obviously not been written as that. And then at some point near filming, they've gone, what if we call this character Kevin and this character Marv? And that's as far as they've gone.
I think it was written as that. I read into it, and apparently this was intended by the producers as a kind of backdoor pilot for a Home Alone TV series.
Yeah.
So I think they were taking a kind of reboot approach of how many siblings did he have? Oh, who cares?
Well, there was 5 of them, including him, and now there's 3.
Yeah, you end up with the implication that 2 of them died, which makes sense because of the negligent parenting they were dealing with.
Yeah, exactly.
What, they actually died?
Well, we're missing.
Well, there's
Well, who
two
knows?
two
There's
kids who
still
just
left.
aren't there. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So there's Buzz and like one of the other girls,
Yeah.
and that's it.
I mean, one of them.
Plus, Kevin in the first film is 8, in the second film is 10. In this film, he says in his own words that he is 9 years old. So this film takes place in between those 2 films when the parents split up for a while.
Weird. But is it sort of like a reboot?
It's
or...
bad continuity, is what it is, and I think it's
Yeah,
a
it's
total...
just they don't give a toss.
Yeah, basically. But yeah, it is a very baffling decision to open with his parents having divorced and Kevin longingly watching home movies of last year's Christmas. Sad that his parents won't be together this year, and you're sort of expected to piece together, right, that must be the dad, even though it's a different actor, and I don't really know what's going on. It's a very weird decision all round, and they directly reference
really
the events of the other films here and there. There's a bit where they say something about, we're not going to leave you home alone. And he's like, why not? I was fine last year. And then they go, don't remind me, or whatever. And it's like, well, all right. I mean, so you are tying it into that film. It's,
And the bad guy is
Marv.
without Harry.
Yeah.
But obviously, again, played by a different actor. And
Played by the rather
TV's
bizarre casting decision, French Stewart, probably best known as the 3rd, maybe 4th least notable actor to round out the cast of Third Rock from the Sun.
definitely the 4th most notable
He's
actor. So,
I thought he did that voice as like a voice because he was playing an alien. But no,
I think he's done very. He's probably the most famous blind actor, though. He's done very well for himself, considering that.
Is he actually?
he squints a lot.
He was.
He just can't seem to open his eyes.
He took over from Matthew Broderick to play the live-action Inspector Gadget.
Oh my god! Oh,
That's what I
fuck
know
me.
him from.
I haven't seen that. But obviously, I know him from Third Rock from the Sun. That's it, really.
You can't get Joe Pesci, so who do you get to recapture some of that magic?
Someone from The Sopranos.
The obvious choice is obviously Missy Pyle, isn't it?
Oh, right. Oh, okay.
Who's opposite Marv as his girlfriend Vera. I
Wife,
didn't
I
realize.
believe.
At what point did you realize that was supposed to be the same character from the first film, Alan?
When Kevin sees him and goes, Marv?
Yeah, I had no idea until they both look at each other and go, Marv? Kevin? I'll get you, you little brat. I was like, what? That's meant to be Marv? They must have said Marv earlier and I just missed it. But, he's nothing like him. He's not even playing it remotely like him.
Doesn't look like him. Also, he's the short one now. They've got Missy Pyle, who's like 6 foot tall, as his sidekick. So he's the little one now.
I mean, I like Missy Pyle. She's not had the strongest run of credits in the world. I think it's quite saying something, quite significant, that this is probably the worst film I've seen her in. They apparently did approach Daniel Stern to reprise the role of Marv. And he declined, calling it, quote, an insult total garbage. And I'm not surprised he
Daniel's
found it
bit.
insulting because they didn't even ask Joe Pesci. They knew that would just be a
He
waste
did
of time.
City Slickers too.
Why didn't they recast with a cheap Joe Pesci? Why did they go with Marv's wife?
Yeah, it's a very curious choice, isn't it? Yeah, no idea. And I say I like Missy Pyle, but she can't do anything to salvage this piece of shit. French Stewart in the right context is all right, but this is not the right context.
Thin context, though.
Erica Vary is a very welcome presence in this film. I kept kind of thinking, is that F. Murray Abraham? And then I realised that they're not the same person. But
Is there another creepy old person who saves the day?
Not quite.
so to be fair, F. Murray Abraham is exactly the kind of actor who would turn up in something like Home Alone 4.
This is not beneath him.
No, he plays basically this film, Calvin. To give it credit, they don't rest on their laurels. This has a new hook. This one is it's basically Home Alone in a smart home, which was very forward thinking for 2002.
2002.
His dad has divorced his mum and is marrying very soon an incredibly wealthy woman who has this incredible big house that you can say open doors, play music, and it does all of it. And there are at least two instances where music's playing over a montage, and then the characters really blur the line between diegetic and non-diegetic music and go, will you turn that music down? It's like, what? Weird thing to do. And Erica Vary plays the butler.
Yeah, and it's sort of role that Tim Curry would play, but he
Yeah,
would play
yeah.
with a bit more kind of glee, I suppose. And he
He's
does
a welcome
decent
presence in
job.
this film. He's a little
Yeah.
life raft of something good within a sea of turd. He's
And there's what they obviously think is a plot twist
Yeah.
in it, in which he becomes helps him and becomes the good guy. I think that was pretty obvious.
the two burglars, Marv and his girlfriend Vera, are casing the joint to try and steal. Is it something? Oh, they want to kidnap.
child.
There's a royal family from some Denmark or some
Really not
European
necessarily
country
all
coming.
that. Like just
Yeah.
breaking in and stealing something
Yeah.
valuable would have been fine, wouldn't it?
But there's some plot to kidnap the prince who's going to be there and hold him for ransom. So there's a man on the inside. That's what's important.
they were setting all that up like they were going to kidnap a child. So like, okay, they're going to kidnap Kevin by mistake, thinking it's him. That's going to happen.
Yeah.
None of that happened. They could have been breaking in to steal the safe full of money. You know, it was not necessarily that whole bit.
Yeah, well, yeah, because the prince only turns up at the very end. But the idea is there's a man on the inside, and the butler's evil, and he can't be trusted, and he, has to. He's never really home alone in this one. Is the other thing? He's usually trying to, run around getting away with setting traps, whilst the butler's
he's
there,
never alone.
stop setting traps. And the twist is that the butler's actually a nice, friendly man who's just trying to do his job and look after the kid, and the man on the inside was the sort of cleaning lady that was set up as a nice person.
But so obviously double bluffing you that it's just a bit pathetic. Man.
It's a very flat, lifeless film. I know it's a TV movie, but it's just full of these screen wipes that. I went to see my grandparents the other week, and I watched some home movies that were on a VHS tape that my granddad made, and he had better screen wipe editing than this film on his 90s camcorder. So, I mean, I don't really have much else to say. The acting, the kid's really shit and unlikable. He's just a TV kid, it's not his fault. But the new parents are the most bland, uninteresting.
And there's so many bits where they obviously just don't care at all. The burglars break in to kind of scope the place and accidentally flood the house, and then the kid sees him, recognizes him as Marv, and then they just walk out going, oh well, we'll be back tomorrow to break in again. They don't have any concern that he's gonna tell the police or anything like that.
And Dad's new girlfriend / fiance is sort of really nice and reasonable, but then they realise they've made her too nice and reasonable if you want to see the happy ending where his parents get back together. So they just kind of have to make her suddenly become a total twat.
Do his parents actually get back together?
Yeah.
Oh, I hate that. I hate it when films do that.
And a really not well set up emotional
Oh,
resolution.
God, not at all. It's because the dad's watching It's a Wonderful Life on TV one night, and he's like, "Hey, come and watch this with me." And she's like, "I've already seen it." And he's like, "Hey, I watch this every year with my ex. Why won't you watch it with me?" And she's sort of like, "Well, I'm not your ex." Very reasonable thing to say. And then he sort of realizes, I guess she's not the woman for me. She won't watch this film every single year when it's on TV.
Oh God, I can
The reason was they rewrote the ending to get them back together because they were trying to do it as a TV series, and so okay, we need the family together. But they didn't like go back and rewrite scenes from earlier to make it more.
And
make
I
more
wish
sense.
they'd left them stay apart. It would have felt more like original.
Yeah.
But anyway,
it comes out of nowhere. It's so unfounded.
Yeah.
It was a real insult.
Yeah.
But also, there's a bit they get trapped. Him and the butler, the nice butler now, they get trapped in the basement while the other people are pillaging the house. And don't worry though, they've got a cell phone. So who? Would
Yeah,
you
what the
ring in
fuck was that?
circumstance?
So they try and
Language,
phone his
please.
mum. His mum No, sorry. The siblings pick up. They get pissed off with him because they think he's showing off because he's got a cell phone, and that was still fancy in 2002. Apparently. They hang up. He phones his mum again. She picks up. Then the connection cuts out because it's like bad signal down in the basement, and they think, oh well, that was our one option. Done. We can't try phoning her up again. We can't try the police. Obviously, we wouldn't want to do that. They don't even write a line like, "Hey, the phone's out of battery" or anything like that. It's just
and this is
appalling,
not
right?
just a child who might be thick. There's an adult there with him as well, so it's not just really that. And like, don't at least have him drop the phone into a bucket of water or something in a kind of slapstick way. Make it do something.
Yeah.
Really. So some very weak writing in that bit.
And the traps and everything are just a bit shit in this. Like, I'll give them credit for trying something new. Like I say, the smart home, it's a new location, there's a gimmick there. But ultimately, all it ends up being is that he tells the house to, like, misbehave. So, and even then, he's basically just doing remote control. It's what I was saying, the first film doesn't just have him shoot people in the face. It has him like rig a trap so that they have to kind of elaborately shoot themselves in the face. This film, he basically just shoots them in the face. They have this whole contrived bullshit where there's a remote control that's voice activated, and he reprograms it so that when they say please stop or whatever, it thinks that means go faster. And there's a spinning bookcase / bar that he gets them to stand on, and then he like tricks them into setting it off, and then I think he makes it go faster, and then they say please stop, and it goes even faster, even though he could have just pressed the button to make it go faster, and he's just watching them laughing from the side. It's just terrible.
There's also so much you could use.
He records some of French Stewart talking about getting in a bag and telling people to shut up, and then he plays it back to Missy Pyle, but he's re-edited it. So he says, "Shut up, you old bag," and stuff like that. And then she like comes in and hits him or something. But it's just not.
Editing. It's better than when I did that Werner Herzog interview. It was more natural than French Stewart's normal delivery. That's how you can tell.
It's just a bad film. I don't have much else to say. It's what you'd expect from a crass shit.
It is a bad film, right? But it's a bad film. But on IMDb, it's got a rating of 2.6, which is really, really like appalling, like as IMDb scores go.
Yeah,
and I think it's not that bad. I thought I was expecting it to be worse, I suppose.
Yeah, I think this is probably more of your 4.4 film.
Exactly.
The Home Alone 3.
Praise indeed.
I think people just took issue with Home Alone 3 very unfairly because Macaulay Culkin wasn't in it, and it was like this reboot. And I think people took issue with this because it then sort of did something even worse, which was kind of shit all over the characters and the continuity. Not that it really matters. It's crap in it.
Yeah.
But I agree. That is a very harsh rating. Although it is more or less in line with what I give it, which is 3 out of 10.
Yeah. Also me, I gave it 3 out of 10. But I don't think our views are representative of IMDb general populace.
Yeah. Well, in this case, they kind of are, I guess. 2.6. That's closest to a 3, isn't it? And so I was very hungover, feeling very ill. It was probably about 9 p.m. at this time. I was like, how am I still dealing with this hangover? I only had 7 drinks. That's fuck all. So I was really getting annoyed. I'd cooked food and tried to eat it, and I just couldn't eat it at this point. I was not happy. So the thought of having to watch another one of these films, I was furious. And then I put it on, and Malcolm McDowell was fucking in it. And I was like, what?
Did that make it better or worse?
Better. Well, at first I was very sad for him, but I don't know. I had a very slow realization that this was a much better film than I was expecting. They go for a much older kid than we've had in previous entries.
Well, he's not supposed to be. It's just an older actor. He's supposed to be 10 still. It's just he's about 13.
Yeah, I just assumed he was meant to be like a young teen.
But it doesn't work. It actually is a problem because he looks 13, and the way they treat him and the way he acts is like an 8-year-old, 9-year-old, whatever.
I thought that was fine. I thought it played fine. I just took it as he was like 12 or 13. And
you just got
he
no
was
concept of kids' ages, have you?
Well, no, I thought he was about 12 or 13, as the actor was, and that the kid was just a little wuss baby because he's scared of ghosts, and that this whole film adds in a hook of the idea that the house might be haunted, which I think is quite nice.
Yeah,
Gives
I
it
like
bit
that
of
as a new
life.
concept. But Calvin, it's not like we're ever expected to believe it's haunted. It's just this child thinks it might be haunted, and then the bad guys come along and they think it might be haunted, or at least the simple ones do.
Yeah, well, at first the kid thinks that it's haunted because he sets, little ghost traps and things to test if doors have been opened while they've been out and stuff like that. But then subsequently, the bad guys think it's haunted because they think a mischievous poltergeist has set a load of traps made out of wrapping paper and stuff.
But the important thing is that we as an audience...
Malcolm McDowell, of course, has a moment where he's like, "You're not a ghost at all. You're an annoying little brat."
Oh, God.
But yeah, the important thing is, Calvin, we're not expected as an audience to believe in ghosts. We're always
Right, okay.
in the know
Yeah.
about what's going on.
I thought it was
And
a
the
nice
fact that the kid
flavour.
is convinced that the house is haunted, it makes total sense.
Yeah, because they move to a new town, this family, and the kids aren't happy.
They move to Maine, and there's a
It's
haunted
Maine,
house.
exactly. It's
obviously
the most spooky state, and it's a big house, and they're kind of asking how they got it so cheap, and the sister suggests maybe that someone was murdered there. It works. It's good, and the cast in this are such a step up from the previous one. So I mean, Malcolm McDowell, love him to pieces. Such a welcome presence as the new head burglar bad guy. These are like a slick heist operation. It's Malcolm McDowell, the brains. Eddie Steeples, who you may know as Crabman from My Name Is Earl,
Yes.
among other things, as the safecracker.
You say among other things. I can't think of anything else, but whatever.
I saw him in a film called, I think it's called Would You Rather, which was like a fun not Herbert West, what's his name? Jeffrey Combs vehicle that he was in. But he brings a lot of charm to this, I think.
Well, you know how in My Name Is Earl, as the Crabman, he's like the bit is that he seems like he can't act because he just looks like he's like a very unnatural, unrealistic character.
Yeah.
Apparently, that's not just that character.
Yeah.
Just exactly the same in this.
Yeah. I think it's fine. I think he works as a kind of bumbling henchman.
I think
He's a likable presence. I like him.
I think he could do a lot better. Put it that way.
I think also worthy of note in this film is Doug Murray, who plays the dad and is, for a kind of nobody TV movie dad actor, is really giving it his all. And he brings a lot of character and charm to a role that could have been very bland.
Do you know what? I agree, and it's definitely it's like he's really playing that kind of like the dad, like sitcom dad almost, but it's more like kind of Christmas commercial dad. It's a bit of It's got a bit of a Malcolm in the Middle feel.
You just swore, Alan, again.
Fuck. Sorry.
Yeah, it's he's not on par with Bryan Cranston, but he's on par with even Stevens again, to keep going back to that as a cultural touch point. I watched Shia LaBeouf's cinematic therapy session Honey Boy the other day, so I've got.
I wondered why you were bringing that up constantly.
It's just that era of kids' TV, isn't it? It was on around the same time these movies were. But no, I think for this level of film, he's doing good work. There's a lot of weak gags that he makes play.
Yeah.
And in the hands of a lesser performer, they wouldn't have worked.
I also thought the mum was quite good as it felt like she should be doing better things, if you know what I mean. Just felt like as an actor there was some ability there. I did look her up. She played Morticia Addams in the new Addams Family in the late 90s. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I did think she has a very stern face, and then I saw that and I was like, oh yeah, of course.
So I definitely one of those things where I think the actors are better than I was expecting.
Yeah. Well, a similarly likable presence who's no one of note, but again, I think he turns in quite a good performance. Bill Turnbull as the kind of internet friend of the boy. I think he was very likable. You could definitely see him being on the same list as you go to Jack Black, you can't get him, so you go to the guy out of Reaper, that short-lived. Did you ever see Reaper, Alan? Kevin Smith did the pilot. Well, there was a kind of a cheap man's Jack Black, who in fact is in Zack and Miri Make a Porno. He's the drunk guy who goes into the coffee shop and they just serve him when they're shooting.
Oh, right, I know what you mean.
He's just second down the list. And then third down the list's this guy, Bill Turnbull, I would say. He's very likeable presence, brings a lot of charm to it. Calvin, the main kid, he's obsessed with video games. He's just playing video games the whole time. Doesn't want to go out and see the world and interact with people. He has a friend online, and then about halfway through the film, its twist reveal is that like his friend online's this college kid who's much older than him, and they both thought they were the same age as each other, and they're a bit awkward, and he ends up giving a load of advice through the lens of how to play video games as to how to defend his home, because he thinks it's a game that the kid's talking about, and then he finds out it's a real thing, and he tries to like contact the police, but he ends up getting through to the kid's mum and saying like, your kid's in danger, I met him on the internet, your daughter's locked in the basement, so they send the SWAT team to his house and he gets pepper sprayed. There's a nice comedic edge to this film that I think is just pitched. It could go too far, it could be a bit cringy, but it just gets away with it. There are a few little gags taking shots at the first film that I really enjoyed as well.
It also has enough new ideas like that, enough progression that it feels like you're doing something a little bit new. You've also got Ed Asner as the boss, who's sort of extended cameo.
Oh, God,
now, I don't know if he's playing it as a drunk, confused old man, or if he was.
Well, he's at a Christmas party, you know.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much he was acting. But again, just sort of nice little presence.
Well, he's playing it as like the villain at the start of a murder mystery, because the parents go to a Christmas party without the kids for a couple of hours, and then they get snowed in, and they're in this remote mansion, and they're told, none of you can leave, we won't be able to plow the house for 2 days, and all this stuff. It's as I said before, right, there's a few gags at the expense of the first film that I really enjoyed. There's a bit where the kid, once he's left home alone, he does a kind of risky business montage of, eating junk food, jumping on the sofa, and then he shaves and puts aftershave on, and he slaps his face with it, and you think they're going to recreate the moment, and he just kind of does it and looks like, fine.
Whatever.
What's the problem with that?
It's not the same characters, is it? It's different continuity.
No, it's different characters.
It's different, right? Okay.
And there's the whole plot is about this painting that is in the basement of the house that they're not aware of, but the burglars have come to get.
It's a lost masterpiece.
Yeah, and it was painted by Edvard Munch,
Oh.
who obviously painted The Scream, and at the end the parents are like, this painting's by Monk, you know, The Scream, and they do the hands on the face at the kids, and then the kids kind of go, no, don't do that. It's Malcolm McDowell has there's a bit where they freeze the stairs, and Malcolm McDowell sort of says something like, we're not a couple of two-bit wet bandits, or whatever he says.
It's not quite that on the nose.
Yeah,
But
he says something like, we're not a couple of two-bit bandits, or something.
Because basically when he's setting up the traps and stuff, you see him wetting the steps, and I thought, oh, that's a bit... you're just reusing the same bit. But then they call it out, and he says, oh, we're not falling for that. And then they even get the cake and eat it, because when the police turn up at the end, they run into the house and slip on the ice and fall on the house. So it really hits everything. It's
Cool.
But yeah, I agree with you, Saul. There was some nice bits there and also the direction as well. It was
it's far more of an attempt at a film. This is a TV movie as well, but it felt like the last one was a TV movie. It felt like they were just making some shit to go out on TV and fill an hour and a half. This feels like the people involved actually cared and wanted to make something good with the opportunity.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Sol. It felt like a film. It didn't feel like, oh, let's chuck something out, cash in. It felt like a legitimate attempt to make a decent film. And like the director they've got is a director with a fair lineage. You know, he did Garfield.
Peter Hewitt, yeah.
But you know, stuff like The Borrowers he did back in the 90s, and the Bill and
Ted's
sequel.
Bogus Journey, yeah.
Yeah, so like he's got enough reputation that, you know, he can obviously knows what he's doing, and you know, he did Thunderpants with Little Women and all that. but you know, whatever. It feels much better than it has any right to be, and is that because of Home Alone lineage? Is it still that kind of reputation that will draw better talent to it than it's just some throwaway Christmas film?
I think you probably could, you know, you can probably put a bit more money behind a Home Alone TV movie than a generic ABC TV movie, and Malcolm McDowell's not going to turn down anything if you pay him enough money, and I can't imagine Eddie Steeples is, you know, holding out for a better role to come along, and Bill Turnbull's, this is his most notable credit, and you know, so I think they just took some care with it. I just think, you know, the people casting it and directing and writing it, just it doesn't feel like a hack job. It feels like something made with care. And I mean, to jump straight into a rating, I was really pleasantly surprised with this film. There was a bit in the middle where it began to wane, but then they got to the big climax at the end. It all came together so nicely. There were enough little self-aware moments and gags.
Oh, quickly before you rate it, one thing I did quite like, the traps, they do have a kind of Christmassy theme.
Yes,
so
that was very nice, yeah.
Malcolm McDowell gets
wraps
up in wrapping paper.
Yeah.
The woman, Debbie Mazzarchi...
Poison gingerbread cookies.
Oh, yeah, so... No. So the woman, she gets... her hair sort of puffed up into horns because it gets matted. And, like, some reason she gets a red nose. I can't remember. So she looks like a red-nosed reindeer. And then, Crabman eats these gingerbread cookies that have been there to poison him. And then drinks glue.
What's he putting them, like chili powder or something?
Vinegar and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But the idea is that he drinks this milk because he thinks, but it's glue, and it's a very contrived thing to get glue on his face. So then when he gets cotton wool blown at him,
well, that's it. He turns on the tap, and the tap's been rigged to spit cotton wool out of the garbage disposal, or whatever the fuck that is.
Yeah.
It works.
The problem with it was that
silly.
It was kind of like a silly trap that wouldn't slow anyone down for more than like
yeah,
10
I did
seconds.
think that. It just annoyed them.
It felt quite contrived, but I at least appreciated they were trying to go with this kind of Christmas theme.
Yeah.
Debbie Mazar ends up trapped in a snowman somehow with his weird kid next door.
Well, this kid next door's just built a snow fort and has loads of snowballs. They set her up earlier as like a main kid, which means that all they have to play with is snow. So when the kid goes out there, she's like, "Do you want to build snowmen, snow angels,
kid's-
snowballs,
So,
snow kites?"
that child is a boy, actually, Sol. I do understand your confusion because it seems
Is it really?
It's a boy. It's referred to
my
as a boy,
God.
and I checked, and it's a male actor because I couldn't believe it either.
Really?
Yeah, it's a boy.
I was hungover.
You can't tell these
I
days,
mean,
can you? You never can tell these days.
Yeah. I work with someone who was. I think we were talking about Billie Eilish. I don't know if you're familiar with her. One of the biggest
I know the name.
musicians of the day, Alan. She is a young woman, and we were talking about her as a she at work, and then this guy I worked with was like, "Oh, she? I thought Billie Eilish was a boy," and we're like, "No, it's a girl." And he's like, "Oh, my daughter like really fancies her because she thinks it's a boy, and she's adamant that it's a guy." He's like, "No, that's a girl." And he was like, "Oh."
Wait a minute, I've seen pictures of Billie Eilish, and very feminine, not obviously a girl. I mean,
Look at
names-
some more pictures because you can see how she might pass for a quite feminine boy in the kind of emo mold. Anyway,
Well, it's all up for grabs. Isn't it?
we haven't mentioned that the kid has a sister. It's probably worth bringing up.
Oh yeah, so yeah, he's never left home alone either.
Left with his sister, but they come up with quite a nice way of getting her out of the picture.
Well, at first she's just like, I'm going to sit in my room on my phone, fuck off. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I mean, scram.
Which works as a really nice, not too contrived way of getting phones out of the picture. Because it's a new house, they presumably not had a new phone installed or whatever shit. No one uses
Well, the
landlines
internet is
anymore
working
anyway.
immediately. He's playing his video
okay.
games. So I don't know about that.
All right, well they haven't got a landline phone anymore. Who does? They take the kids' toys away, like they take the video game controller and the phone away because they're punishing them when they leave them home alone. But then they leave the phone because they realise the kid needs it for emergencies. And she runs the battery down so that they can't... And there's some bullshit why they can't charge it up, I can't remember. But anyway...
Well, that's after she's got trapped in the basement.
Yeah. And she gets stuck in the safe room with the painting, which
secret
basically
room.
takes her out of the picture for the rest of the film. But it's nice just to have her as an extra presence, as a reason why the kid isn't properly home alone. It's nice that they're not just, bending over backwards to do that. And also gives her character a bit of an arc. They get some nice humour out of... She's stuck in there with a book, War and Peace, and she kind of looks at it like, am I going to read? And eventually decides she is going to read because there's nothing else to do. It's all just played quite nicely, this film. So
Do you know what? So the note I paid was, and especially at the end, well, it's a big sort of happy ending, but it's not a kind of horribly contrived happy ending because at no point do you feel like this family is in any great turmoil. There's a bit of, because they've just moved house, the kids aren't happy. There's a bratty teenager and all that, but it's like, ultimately they all love each other. And you never get that from Kevin McAllister's family.
Yeah,
You never get this
exactly.
sense that they actually might like each other and enjoy each other's company.
yeah.
And the word I used was wholesome. I just got a nice wholesome feeling from this.
It's because these parents only have 2 kids and they can actually focus some attention on them. When you got 20 kids, you just can't. You lose track of them. You don't know what's going on. What do we call that one again? I don't even know. Which one's the smart one? I don't fucking know.
Number 7.
Whereas 2 kids, that's manageable. So basically, I was really pleasantly surprised with this film. I was expecting another piece of shit like Home Alone 4. I gave this one 7 out of 10 again, and that's a very generous 7 out of 10. But I think this film works at the level it's pitched just fine, and it's very enjoyable for what it is.
Yeah, I agree with that. It does feel like sort of retreading the Home Alone stuff that's been done, but it brings enough new ideas. And yeah, much better than it had any right to be. I feel like I've been very positive. I've given it a 6 out of 10. But again, yeah, it's sort of it's a kids' film, really. It'd be better aimed at kids.
But think about. I mean, frankly, it's probably one of Malcolm McDowell's better films of the last 10 years. I mean, it's all right. And it kind of made me sad that we haven't got more Home Alone than that. But Home Alone is a Fox property, and Fox was just bought out by Disney, and they have announced that among their plans is a a Home Alone reboot. So basically Home Alone 6, because, 5 and 4 and 3 were all basically reboots. For the new Disney Plus streaming service. I hope that is good and not just a shat out, Home Alone 4 all over again kind of thing. I honestly, I find it'll obviously never happen now under Disney, but I find it very strange that we never got Home Alone 3 with adult Macaulay Culkin. It just seems like such a slam dunk bit of nostalgia.
The next generation.
That would just rake in money. I'm aware they've done a few kind of.
Is it because he looks like a
riffing
crack
on that.
addict?
Well, he's. I don't know if he'd want to come back for a full film or anything.
Well, he's
but
40 now. He'd have to be the dad, surely.
Oh, yeah.
And they did do
It's his
that
kids.
that short Google commercial. It was like 60 seconds long, and it was him in the house and using the voice-activated Google stuff. I mean, a lot of it was shot-for-shot stuff.
And he did a web series as well, a sort of comedy web series where he played a comedic take on the character as a PTSD-riddled guy dealing with
That's
the
what I
events
watched.
of the film. Yeah.
I watched one of them. It was nice. It was all right. It was nice, but it was a fun little 5-minute thing. I didn't want to see any more.
Yeah, and apparently the actor who plays Marv recorded a response video of him being like, "You stay away from me, Kevin McAllister," or something, which sounds a bit desperate if you ask me. But
But we know Joe Pesci's come out of retirement.
yeah,
He's still up for it. We can de-age him.
I don't think we need to. Honestly, I think if you made a film about adult Kevin McAllister rigging traps and it was a very self-aware comedy playing to an adult market, I think it would clean up. I think it would be one of these slam dunk R-rated comedies making shitloads of money, like The Hangover and all that kind of stuff. I think that would go down a treat, and I'm surprised it hasn't happened. And apparently Ryan Reynolds is working on something called Stoned Alone, which sounds like they basically had the same idea and couldn't get the rights to Home Alone. And I don't know if he's the guy to do it, but I mean, definitely not if that's your title, but whatever.
But yeah, you do it as a really serious like home invasion drama.
Well, Straw Dogs.
and he has to like Panic Room. He has to defend the house.
But with MacGyvered booby traps. Set it somewhere that like adults know, like an office. So he's got to rig traps with like staplers and hole punchers and the coffee
Like
machine.
Die Hard in an office.
Oh.
Die Hard.
I think there's a lot of light. I think you could just make Home Alone movies for the rest of time, and I don't think it would ever get too old that you can't find new ways to riff on it. And I hope Disney realise that and put some proper talent behind it. I don't think they will. I think it's going to be shit. We'll see. Any other Christmas business?
Did you just sort of like knock some papers on a desk then? It sounded like you were...
I picked a pen up.
Oh, right. Oh, okay. It's still quite officious for end of ceremonies.
So what are you doing for Christmas, guys? Are you going to be home alone like me?
No. I think I'm going to 2 different families.
Like the Vicar of Dibley. And you have to eat Christmas dinner, everyone, eh?
I'm far more annoyed about my work Christmas party, which, dare I say, has been hijacked. God. And we're going to a vegan buffet that's costing us £40
Is this 20th Century Fox is doing?
No.
Part of the merger.
No. Nothing like that.
It's Rupert Murdoch. What do you say? You've got to spend £40 to go to a vegan restaurant.
Yes.
£40 and they're not even going to give you any meat.
It's a buffet as well.
It's London, isn't it?
Thank God there's a cheese board.
The good thing is that we as a family have decided not to bother with presents. So we just can't be bothered with that.
Oh, I don't like this at all.
Have you ever bothered with presents, any of you?
Yeah, because last few years what I'll do is I'll go up on the train. And my dad will pick me up at the train station, and we'll pop into Co-op on the way back, and I'll spend like 40 quid
Buy him
on
a
some
bag of
bottles
Bugles.
booze and some box of chocolate and that, and then jobs are good.
I can imagine your mum giving very odd presents. Like you unwrap a card and it's got like permission to leave the table without saying thanks for dinner or something written on it, and just like weird little things like that. No?
There's a lot of stuff, the sort of stuff she's just found around the house that she wraps up.
Yeah. Oh,
sort of
is a bit of that cat's fur that I had put down for no reason. Thought you might like to remember it.
I remember when she gave your brother that weird bicycle gnome thing years ago. What was that?
What? I don't
Do you
even
remember
know.
that?
I remember that.
On Facebook. Yeah, it was like
Yeah,
this weird
yeah.
gnome that she told him he should put on his bike.
Oh,
It was
yeah.
like she thought she was annoying him by making him take it around with him, but he was just like not bothered. He was like, "Yeah, it's a gnome. I'm not embarrassed by it. What's the problem?" But she thought she was
I think
doing
it's
some
'cause she-
funny prank.
I don't know. I don't think she was trying to be funny. I don't think she's ever tried to be funny. I've been given presents such as a cheese grater I got one year. Tipex
good.
I got as a present.
Yeah, it could be a good cheese grater. Yeah.
It was a good cheese grater.
Did you say Tipex?
Yeah, I got Tipex.
So she forgot to buy anything and just looked in the cupboard.
Yeah, pretty much. I'm not kidding either. That's my parents have never been that good at presents. Like when we were kids, we got toys and stuff. I presume we kind of asked for specific things that I can't remember, or Christmas Santa's list and all that. But yeah, we've never been a big present giving family, so it's never been a big thing in my life.
But how can you quantify your love for each other without material goods?
We have no need for love.
Happy Christmas, everybody.
Come back next week because it's the end of the year, innit? So you know what that means.
Review everything we've done.
You've not had a review of the year yet this year.
Whoa.
And we realised it's going to take about 7 hours, so we're splitting it in two. So it's part 1. Come back next week.